Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the White Pube podcast. My name is Gabrielle Del Puente and the White Pube is a website where myself and Serena Mohammed share texts that we write on art, games, books, films, anything that we want to. This week's text, going out on Sunday the 4th of August, is called Severance. In 2018, Ling Ma published a semi-prophetic book called Severance about a woman who survives a pandemic that kills almost everyone on Earth. Candice Chan is working in publishing when a virus, which originates in China, starts biting into New York. Everything is novel, uncomfortable and gradual, concerning news stories, travel bans, a few cheap work-issued face masks. Candice just carries on with her work. Her job revolves around publishing Bibles, repackaging the same text in different ways each year. Thin paper, small print. She does her work meticulously. The virus is much less exacting and completely fatal. Soon there is a death count in bold on the homepage of a major news outlet's website. We saw the same thing happen in 2020 on the Times' front page when the UK reached 100,000 deaths in 10 months of COVID. Back then, everything was novel, uncomfortable, and gradual in the real world's new surrealism. One walk a day, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the end to come. I wonder if I could have suffered 2020 any easier if I had read Severance in time. In preparation. Before things ramp up in the book's pandemic, or ramp down, sloping into a bleak vanishing point, Candice's colleagues are asked to work from home, but the bosses offer a huge sum of money for Candice to carry on coming in. They say, "We'd prefer to keep our main office open. This is partly an optics issue. It gives our clients confidence that we're still open when our competitors have closed their offices." She's fine with that. She'd prefer to keep her routine. She prefers it even when the death count ticks up and the office empties around her. She keeps coming in, even when New York empties too. Even when she has to call 911 because she gets stuck in the lift up to the 31st floor on the way to work and there are no repair services left alive to rescue her. When Candice comes back the next day and walks the 31 flights instead, despite the broken lift and the full-scale societal collapse and the ridiculous physical sacrifice, I began to feel a lot of second-hand shame holding this book in my hands. It's still heating my cheeks a few weeks after reading. I felt shame watching Candice climb and dig and burrow all alone, the only worker left in the ant farm. Mars writing like glass, flat against one side of all this dirt so that we can examine our bizarre animal behaviour. I felt shame when Candice tried to get an estimate request on a Bible reissue from the factory that prints them in China, and they replied telling her 71% of their workforce was dead, the place was closing, and that she should leave work and spend time with her family. Shame in knowing that she was spending all of this time on books that would never be made, and that no one could read anyway because they would all soon be dead. Shame in her still going to the office for the optics when there were no eyes left to look. Shame in Candice automatically being issued that huge sum of money into her bank account for the sake of those optics at a time when there are no other people left to exchange goods with and money has very much become meaningless. Shame in redundancy pay that is totally redundant. Shame in working for nothing, heavy, hot, lonely, bleeding shame in knowing I probably would have done the exact same thing as Candice. Even though there was a life-threatening virus in the air and I couldn't see the love of my life and I had to dress like a spaceman to visit the supermarket. I worked more than I've ever worked in 2020. If you had 24 hours left to live, what would you do? My answer is terrible, it turns out. I earned £34,000 that year, the most I've ever made, because in the uninterrupted privacy or loneliness of successive lockdowns, I just indulged my want to work and to always be working. I was not just picking at the continental edges of a scab, but carrying on until the jagged blood crisp was lifted clear off. I worked constantly because I needed the money. I thought I was enjoying myself, and also because I lacked the imagination to do literally anything cooler. I think that work has long been this deflecting thing positioned in front of me, over and before any other identity. The man who stops his ice cream van on my road on Thursday evenings during the summer refers to me only as the writer. At no point in the past 4 years have I thought it important enough to tell him my name or to talk about anything other than the book I'm writing. And I hate that as much as I hate Candace heaving herself up all those stairs for nothing. The fungal virus that kills people in Severance doesn't always kill them in the way that we recognise. It normally does, but occasionally people lose consciousness. They half rot, and like domesticated zombies animated by the fungus, they continue performing a clumsy semblance of their daily routines from back when they were truly alive. There is one scene in the book when Candace passes the flagship Juicy Couture shop on Fifth Avenue. By that point, all shops had been looted and wrecked, so she notices this one because it is pristine, like a glass time capsule. On a closer inspection, she finds somebody inside who is folding and refolding polo shirts. They aren't alive. They are fevered. Some of their jaw is missing. It is shit that in suspended death, this particular body only recalls work. It doesn't keep the imprint of fun or other people or art. The body probably belonged to somebody who had to work shifts all the time to be able to afford to live in New York. But under these terms, Candace might as well be fevered too, because she is also stuck in her own looping performance, achieving nothing. It is these two images of Candace walking up the stairs and the Juicy Couture employee rearranging velour that really got to me when I was reading Severance. When Candace climbed 31 floors, I felt like I understood that particular kind of possession, like an internal duty not coming from any outsider, whip in hand, but more like an invisible rig that has already decided what I'm gonna do. Ling Ma has written in the grooves of our zombie working bodies and the way those have made grooves into the earth. Reading felt like slipping down them, bumbling down inverted desire paths, losing my grip in the mechanical oil spill, and actually feeling more horror in the book's characterization of work than in its history-ending pandemic. I've been watching Twin Peaks for the first time lately, and the 2.5-minute uncut shot of somebody sweeping the floor in The Return did the same thing. There is all this horror in the air, but look at what we're doing instead. In 2020, I worked. On January the 2nd, 2021, I got a COVID infection that disabled me, changed my life, shrunk my entire world, obliterated my future. I was left with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, vasovagal syndrome, chronic fatigue, grief, and huge frustration. And I am ashamed that I have carried on working this entire time. I had just signed with a literary agent the month before my chronic illness began, and when I was lying prone in bed in those first few weeks, I read a book about crafting narrative. Light research, lightheadedness, light breaths that made me feel lifeless. I was changing, but in many respects, I was exactly the fucking same. While my body went through that nightmare change, I played a game on my Switch that I wanted to review, stopping now and then to take my temperature. I answered emails from my phone. I was due to run a workshop with an artist and a group of art students, and instead of calling in sick or asking them to record it, I let the artist take the lead and kept my camera off because I insisted on working, and also I was still in bed. I was keen for a career change at the time. I wanted to produce writing that wasn't just a reaction to someone else's art, but art in and of itself. And so I decided not to postpone my place on a game writing course. I had never felt so sick in all my life, or so bored or scared or dependent. But I did my homework every week, and by the end of the course, I had written a treatment for a video game about a firefighter and domestic abuse. That was on top of weekly reviews, which I also recorded, whispering into the microphone because I had lost the force behind my voice. It's been 3.5 years since then, and I hate admitting this shit because it is not resilience, but pure stupidity. Or it's sad, really. I did all of these things so that I would carry on feeling like myself in my head. The writer of the ice cream man knows, while my body became something else entirely. When I read Severance, I kept going back to this time in my head. That's where my shame radiates out from. Because I still wonder if I would have gotten so ill and stayed this ill if I had stopped working completely and just let myself rest instead. Not that I could have afforded to, but also maybe I could have. I could have asked friends and family to take me in for as long as I needed to recover, but I never asked, and I never recovered. I'll never know, of course. I also know that I shouldn't mark it down as a personal fault when we live in a world that prioritizes the exploitation of the working class for profit. And I'm not sure my friends and family could have afforded to take me in so that I could exist outside of that system for a while. I was too busy clawing my way back to independence anyway, and still falling short. Yesterday, I had a call with the person who was reviewing the disability benefit I now receive, and he stopped me after a minute to say, "Sorry, are you not well? Do you have a cold right now?" I had to tell him this is just what it sounds like when you have a chronic illness, but I also thought, well, at least he knows I'm telling the truth. The benefit is access to work. I'm given a grant to pay a support worker to help me carry on earning money despite the fraying state my body is in. I might have earned £34,000 in 2020, but it was only about 11 the following year. I'm glad to have that help, but God, to think of the grant as a working lift back to the office so that I don't have to walk the stairs. I'm still fevered. In my body, definitely. In my class, possibly forever. But in my head, I'm not so sure anymore. I think a new change might have begun. A few years ago, if I was the only person left in the book city after a pandemic had wiped everyone out, I would have acted like Candace. If I had died, I would have come back to life, mashing my fungus-possessed hands along a keyboard, typing nonsense or nothing on a blacked-out, offline screen. But I don't push through anymore. Working used to energize me, but now it directly punishes my health. Makes it a lot easier to turn around and walk down the stairs instead of up, to leave out the front door, remember the sky, and do things that have nothing to do with work. So this review is late because I live with sickness. This text is short because it has to be. Ling Ma wrote this book after she was laid off from her job as a fact checker at a magazine. She used the money from her severance pay to get it started. Next time a pandemic makes the world novel, uncomfortable, and open again like a huge bleeding wound, I'll know not to waste my time with work anymore. I'll just take my money and run. Thank you for listening. Okay, if you have gotten to the end of this piece, thinking of Severance, please comment some money emojis. There's loads of different type of money emojis, so it's, that's fun to choose from. Please comment them on our Instagram post or share it on Twitter. I don't really go on Twitter anymore. Just help us share the text if you enjoyed it. You don't have to. It's just kind of nice when people get to the end and they comment so that we know they got to the end of the text. Thank you. I'm gonna go and rest and not do any work. I hope you're all well, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.